You're listening to the Empower to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dina T, and I'm so excited to take you on a journey through stories of everyday experts as we share the ways we've harnessed the power inside us to improve the quality of our lives and the health of our minds. We're so excited to have you here with us and hope you feel inspired and empowered to heal. Hello, you beautiful souls. I feel so honored that you are tuning in and joining us today because this episode is just going to put you in a tailspin learning about some really, really powerful information. I'm here with my friend and old colleague, Chantelle Oguadimma. I'm so happy to have you here, Chantelle. How are you?
Good. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I feel blessed that you agreed to join the show. I've got to say, watching you from the sidelines and what you're doing with your life has been so inspiring. You guys listening to this
Yeah.
show, I want you to know Chantelle and I used to work together at Child and Family Support Services.
Yep.
And she recently left earlier than I did to pursue this amazing dream that she's been really putting into action in big ways. She has opened up her own behavioral health clinic and home for adults who have serious mental
hmm
illnesses and substance abuse struggles. And she's literally bought a house for this purpose, created programming, connected with health insurances, brought in people in need to support them and help them heal through this journey, provides counseling, designed the counseling programs, has services for counseling for the home, as well as outpatient services and private pay services for the community. And you're on fire, Chantal.
Thank you. That was an introduction. Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about you, anything that you feel really would resonate with our audience listening here who are usually people who are following the mental health journey or experiencing
Mhm.
that healing journey in their own unique way because you've tailored mental health needs outside of the structured box that a typical service would look like.
Yeah, well, I was at CFSS for like 9 years, a little short of 10, right? And I really loved the work that we did at CFSS. I felt like there was so much room for creativity and the support we gave our families.
Mhm.
I if I was ever got like a hard no, I felt like it definitely wasn't from someone at CFSS. If I got a no from CFSS, it was always a bigger discussion. My hard no's were outside of the company, and it always felt good. I always felt like no matter how far I want to go, I know I could find someone at the company to support me. But at the
Yes.
same time, like I felt like, and we've talked about this, like we were also confined because at the end of the day, it's community mental health and there's all this red tape and policy and there's only so far we can go. And so even if we have the company standing behind us, there's barriers for the company as a whole. And so sometimes it got limiting, sometimes it got emotional. you
Mhm.
know but even still, I know I was so passionate about the work I was doing there. I think, we joked around the office, but I really did drink the CMSS Kool-Aid pretty heavy. Like I really felt blessed to work there, and I learned so much. And I was constantly surrounded by smart people all the time there. Like felt like we had so many smart people there, and I don't
Yes.
know. I just kept thinking like, um, I started there when I was like 22. And then, I started as a direct support specialist, which is probably like the best job there. Like, it was like hang out with people for 4 hours at a time doing fun
Right?
stuff. So it's like one of the best jobs there. But quickly I left and I was promoted to a supervisor position. And then after I started that, I started working on my master's. And I decided I wanted to get into therapy and providing therapy to families. And I don't know, as I was going through that process, I was exposed to a lot of people outside of the system and exposed to kind of how far I could take my degree.
Mm.
And, it was really interesting because there was one course, I feel bad because I can't remember the course and I love the professor. But we did like, the personality assessments for
Uh-huh.
like fun or whatever.
Mhm.
And I forgot which one I got, but it was something like along the lines of very like career oriented. And she was telling me how, I don't see you just going into private practice. I see you like you're gonna do something organizational, like you're gonna have something big. And I was like, yeah, that sounds right. And I kept thinking about it, and I was like, I want to have a CFSS. I want my own CFSS,
Yes.
like,
I love
right?
that that professor was like showing you, first of all, they believed in you and they showed you the
Yeah,
sky's
she
the
really did.
limit. And I feel like that's really valuable when you're, a lot of times we go to get a degree and we think that it's going to help us in a specific job, but that's not the case, right? It gives us a foundation of information that we get to choose how we're going to implement that and create something with it for ourselves.
It's interesting because before her, I'd go into a new cohort. I had like a cohort system for grad school, and our professors usually would give us the same spiel. They'd be like, if you're getting into this field to make money and to do big things, you're in the wrong field. I'm like, wait, first off, that's super negative to tell a bunch of people who have
The
just picked
limiting
a
belief.
degree. Yeah, like off the bat. And then it's funny to me because I'm looking at them and they're all therapists, by the way. All my professors were therapists. That was a big thing at my school, was wanting teachers who could like really support application. And it's funny, later I became a professor, like an adjunct faculty member at that same school. And I'm looking at them like, but all of you are making money using your degree right now. You know what I mean? So it was just weird. But that was the first professor that like really empowered us. Like, you don't have to just stick to one thing or do one type of therapy or work at one clinic for the rest of
Mm,
your life or do this to get a good job. Like, you guys can take this so far, you don't
mm,
even know.
mm,
Like, and she was just very confident in us. And that's when I started thinking like, yeah, like I could do more. And I don't know, I started looking at like all the work we were doing at CFSS, and I was also in class with a bunch of other people from different clinics, and I it kind of like affirmed my belief in CFSS hearing their stories. And I just felt like, I could do this. I could totally have my own CFSS.
mm.
And so
Real quick, I love
mhm,
a theme that you're talking about of like surrounding yourself with experiences that force you to think outside of the box, not just force, but
mhm.
support you in thinking outside the box. So when I think of CFSS, when you say drink the CFSS Kool Aid, it's like legit because CFSS is out here doing
Yes.
something completely different than all the other public behavioral health
Yes.
providers. And the difference of it is that it's simple, ordinary, everyday, human to human experiences. Like,
Yes.
bring your head in from having to think of everything about processes and policies and sticking inside a single framework. It's like an eclectic approach that we individualize and we don't put limitations on because
Yes.
humans don't have limitations.
Yes.
And to be a behavioral health system and work in a field of I would just say like high risk, like CFSS was
Mhm.
created for the highest risk populations,
Yeah.
and to put yourself out there in a way that you're going to say, I'm going to work with these highest risk populations and I'm not going to create barriers to confine myself in. And really, if I don't achieve something that I'm wanting to, it's because I haven't dreamed up of what it could be yet, right? Or
Yes.
there's other factors out there influencing it. But that platform plus what that professor shared with you in grad
Yeah.
school, like that's really formulating this belief system in your mind. Like erase the limiting beliefs of you're not going to make a lot of money and this is a hard job and put it into a different spectrum where we're not putting walls around ourselves and we're saying like, give me all the opportunities and the learning and I will create whatever my brain can kind of manifest.
I really believe that being there for as long as I was and the support I had in my creativity and growth, and the encouragement I got, I would not have started my business or at least moved forward as aggressively as I did had I not had that experience. So there's no way. I don't think so. There's no way because you really are. Remember that slow? Oh my gosh. Remember that horrible on-call phone that would ring really loud and it would be
Oh, it
like,
was the
figure it out, figure it
alarm.
out. Oh my gosh. And it would just be like, figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. And that was like the slogan for a while
Yeah.
at work. And it really was like figure it out, like, and I feel like in my life I've taken that in so many areas and ran with it, like figure it out. And I know like it may seem like I don't think it seems toxic. It may seem like, I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself or this or that, but it really is. The way I see it is opportunity is there's no limits, right? When you're there to just figure it out, there's no limits on your opportunities.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, it was a really powerful experience. When I finished school, I did therapy for a while. Still didn't have an idea. I think for me, starting anything was like, oh, well, that's a 10-year plan. I'm going to get some more experience, maybe save
Mm.
some money. And then fast forward to 2000.
Which all of that thinking is like your confidence, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
10-year plan. That's a
Mhm.
mm,
Yeah, that was definitely a part of my 10-year plan. And I really started thinking along these lines like 2015, 2016.
mm.
So fast forward to 2018, I got pregnant with my little Millicent. She's 2.5 now. And, quickly after I became pregnant, I became a single mother. And
Mm.
so, I don't know if this is the right way to start off this journey, but I basically was in need of some money because it was clear I wasn't gonna get really any type of support.
Mm.
And I really needed to figure out how I was going to support myself and support my little one. And my mom, really was like, you need to start this business with me. You need to start this business with me. And, I'm very much like, I don't want to start businesses with my family. I think that's irresponsible and it always causes problems. And she'd ask me about it years ago, like, would you be interested in doing this? And I kind of dabbled, but I was like, I'm comfortable at my job and it's just me. So no. Um,
Mm.
but then, at this point, I was like, what else could go wrong? Like if anything else, like we try it and if it doesn't work, at least I bought a home. I have an asset, I can figure
Mhm.
things out. And so,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, I needed to do something that could help me to really support me and my daughter. So,
I
um,
love that you're sharing the reality of it because great things are born out of necessity, right? And
yeah.
it
Yeah,
pushed
I
you.
mean, yeah, it really did. If it wasn't for Millicent, Angel Family Care definitely wouldn't be here because I was comfortable and I really had it in my idea that this was a 10-year plan, that I was going to start this in 10 years and it wouldn't be nothing I have to worry about anytime soon. So
Mm.
my mom really pushed me. She actually gave me the choice. She was like, I can help you start this business or I can help you get a PhD. And I was like, well, a PhD isn't going to pay the bills right now. And, I also felt like a PhD would be really intensive and really grueling. And I kind of want to be there for my little one. Little
Mm.
did I know. But, so that's what I did. I spent all of my maternity leave once I had my daughter. I had my maternity leave. I took 3 months off work and I just researched the crap out of starting a.
Oh, you, dude, when I had maternity leave, I was like my brain was like fried and dead and
Oh my
depressed and
god.
anxious. And I was like, I couldn't
I
imagine making like a good decision.
Oh my gosh, like, I felt like I didn't, like, when I was on maternity leave, like, I was still a mess, but at the same time, like, I had this, I don't know, it felt like a doomsday thing, like, it was
Mm,
really hitting me, I think, and, it's kinda different when, I tell people I'm a single mom, but really, like, I'm a lone mom, like, there is no other parent for my daughter, so it's like, when you're in that situation, that you got to create plans, you got to figure it
mm,
out, you got to, like, and
mm,
some of that was a little detrimental because I didn't have time to really process that postpartum period, but I just needed to figure it out. So I used my maternity leave and I researched the crap out of starting a behavioral health residential facility, essentially a group home for adults. And I knew I wanted to do adults because I worked in the child sector for so long. And it doesn't matter how long I worked there, I never felt good about kids being in group homes. I just felt like
mhm,
it didn't make sense to pack a bunch of
mhm,
children who didn't know each other into one house. And the only adult supporting them there is staff. I don't believe in that model for children. It doesn't
mhm,
make sense to me. So
mhm.
I made it very clear that I was not interested in doing this for children. Um, and that was it. Once I did that, I just researched and researched and researched and figured out the articles, the rules and regulations through the Department of Health. And then I worked on the back end purchasing a home, which was hard. My
So what
mom,
year was this that you purchased the home then? 2019?
2019. It was
Okay.
this all happened. I think I came back to work March, like the end of March, and I bought the home in May. So this was all like the beginning of
You're
2019.
like, let me have my first child. Let me figure out life on my own. Let me be in my postpartum journey. Let me build an entire business and let me purchase my first home.
I
And then I'll
mean,
come back to work. Like,
it was really
wait a
awful.
second.
It was really awful. When I look back, it was like really terrible. And,
But it's beautiful at the same time. Like, it makes me
yeah.
think, Chantel, like when you're backed into a corner and you're in a state of need, we have a few
Man.
options. Sometimes we shut down, right? We shut down and we turn inward. And that can be like us sitting in our feelings or kind of closing the world out and like, huddling in. And sometimes we bust the F out of there and
Oh
you
my God.
busted out.
I mean, I was really in a like tight. I just needed to figure it out. Like that was going through my head the whole time. Like figure it out, figure it out. And I had my mom there, and she really, I mean, she's like the dominant owner in the business because she helped me out with investing. She helped me get that house. Like, and oh my gosh, and my mom's a nurse and I'm a therapist, and so we're not like the richest people, and they kind of expect you to be pretty wealthy to start these different businesses, which I
Do they
don't get because
really?
it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, like we had to have so much in our account, we had to do this, we had to do that. And so, my mom is just
Mhm.
pulling money where she can. I like drained my 401k. I was like, if we're gonna do this, like I'm in it now, like this is happening, and oh my gosh. But it was so interesting because every step we went through, we would meet barriers. And then I would just research, research, research. And then we just overcome the barrier. Like buying the
Mm.
house was a huge barrier. And we would just research and work with our lender. And then all of a sudden we bought the house and we were like, okay. And then getting licensed was, we had to do all these things. It's a facility. Like it's not just, I think sometimes people think group homes is just a house and you have people come, like, no, there's rules and regulations. It's a facility. We had to take things down, change the mirrors, fix windows. Like it was a process, and
Mm.
we had to make sure everything lined up. And that's just environmental. There's also administrative stuff. Oh my gosh, like I have new respect for any leadership at any type of behavioral health entity, because I mean, the administrative work was extensive,
Mm.
extensive.
I bet that could
We
be someone's entire job is to help people who want to do this, like put together packages of like, this is what you need, how to do it, and I'm going to help you along the way.
Oh, no, that is a job. So I actually wanted to hire somebody
Yeah,
because,
I
mind
would
you,
want to
I'm
too. I'd be like, I got time for
yeah.
this. I got the bigger
Oh my
picture.
gosh. Yeah, because I had a newborn. I was a new homeowner and I was still working full time at CFSS. So I'm like, we need to just hire someone. And we
Mm-hmm.
hired someone and they were charging like 5 to 10 grand. And I was like, okay, so we can't hire somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to do it all on my own, right? I was lucky with my mom. She was able to help like with like a lot of the environmental stuff. So if I told her to buy certain furniture, she just went out and bought it. Like I didn't have to do like heavy lifting because if I
Mm-hmm.
had to do that on top of everything else, it would have just been a wrap. So she was able to help with that. And then yeah, like I kept like postponing things as like, we're not ready, we're not ready. And my mom was just like, oh my gosh, we're ready, just go, just go. So then I
Rip
set
off
up
the
to,
Band-Aid.
yeah, that's how she is. Like, she's like, you're in a tight spot, rip off that band-aid and go. Like, one thing I can say about me and my mom, I very much picked that up from her. She's like an excessively resourceful woman. My mom's the type of woman who could not work for like 10 years and you will see her completely unaffected by her circumstance. She is
Dang.
extremely resourceful. So she was like, no, I'll work out, I'll work out. And she was right. I mean, like literally I submitted the application for the Department of Health. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're not ready. This application isn't complete. They scheduled a survey to come out and survey. And then we had our survey scheduled, and the night before I'm doing all this administrative stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, we're not ready. We're not ready. They came out the next day. Literally, me and her were working up until they came out. I ran home and took a shower and changed and fed my daughter and took her to daycare and then came back and did the survey. And I'm like, we're literally not ready. And they passed us. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then it was time to, register with Medicaid and we had to do that
Oh my
application. I'm like,
gosh.
there's no way. This isn't the Department of Health. This is an insurance company, And so I had to fill out all the paperwork and this and that. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're gonna issue you a provider ID. And I'm like, oh my God, this is happening. This is working. This is happening.
That's amazing.
It
Like,
was
what?
crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. And, for a while I was just like, wow, we are like the luckiest people ever. And my mom was like, no, it's not luck. You're just doing it. Just do it. Like,
And it's like mindset, right? So you know this, but like what you put out into the world is what you get. And if you go out with confidence and you put your heart and your soul into it and you take the action steps you're supposed to be taking, like that alignment will happen, right? It will
yeah.
bring in what you're seeking it to.
It really will. Like it definitely, I think that's what it comes down to. And I've always been very calm. That's one area of my life. I feel like I don't know how, I don't know why I have like excessive confidence in, but my career. I always feel like professionally, no matter what, I'm going to be okay. Like that is just how
Yes.
always I've always tackled my career because I just feel like it if I work hard enough, it will happen. There's no way
Mhm.
around it. And it's proven true time and time again. And so I've always felt very confident in my career. And this whole like venture really threw me for a loop because there were times where I just didn't feel confident, but I would regain my confidence back and be like, no, that's crazy. These when it comes to my career, it always works out for me. So why am I doubting myself now? So um, I so anyways, we had our survey, we passed our survey, we got in good with Medicaid, and then we got our first client. And it was overwhelming. I had to tackle things. I don't even think we ever were reimbursed for our first client. We just were like,
Mm.
okay. Because I really had to learn on the spot. I had to learn billing,
Yeah.
coding, more administrative stuff. And it's like you're literally building it up from scratch. My mom's a nurse and she's not good with computers. My brother's like into tech, and so he's helping us sparingly because he's got his own job and he's like, this is a mother-daughter thing. This isn't my bag. So It really is like, you've got to figure it out. And I think I underestimated the administrative
Mm.
work that this took. And to be honest, when I think back now, that person who was charging us 5 to 10 grand to get everything started, I'm like, at the time I was like, that's absolutely ridiculous. But now I'm like, that is valid. Like that makes sense. Like,
You're like, worth it.
oh my gosh, that's like an under, like you're selling yourself short at that rate, because I mean, it is intense, and then even doing that, you can still get flagged by the Department of Health. So,
Mm.
it was a lot of work. Having our first client was a lot of work, and we had so many learning moments. And then you also see, like, when you get a lot of people advertising to you when you become like an entity like that, especially like through behavioral health system. And the first insurance company that technically you're contracted with through Access is American Indian Health Plan,
Mm.
which is what the Native community has the
Mhm.
option of using. And so um, all of our clients have been a part of that community. And man, that has been probably the biggest experience. For one thing, you have all these people coming out the woodwork trying to like offering to help you and to help build your program, but low key trying to take advantage of your clients. And at one point, we fell victim to that, and it was a
What do you
very
mean by
hard.
that?
Oh my gosh! Like they'll tell you, like, they'll advertise these classes for people in the Native community who maybe have the traditional Native faith and all these things. Meanwhile, they're billing all these services for these people and taking advantage of their insurance and all of this and not delivering what they promise. And,
Wow.
I really realized how much of a target this community is. And when I think we were with one program for like a month or something, and then we're like, oh, something feels weird about this, and we had to like follow up. And again, that's the administrative part. You really have to be on your P's and Q's, and it was a lot. And so once we finally figured out that, like, we can't be utilizing these people, we need to protect our clients here. That's when I developed our program.
And
And
that's got to be really hard, Chantel, because simultaneously you want to be culturally competent to the population you're serving. And it's like,
yes.
how do you walk that fine line of making sure you are culturally competent and providing the services that align with their belief systems or traditions and protecting them from being a victim, basically, to like people falsely claiming they can help?
Well, and that was kind of like the reason why we wanted to utilize these programs, because it's like, this is awesome. Like, this is cultural competence points for us. And then on
Yeah.
top of that, like, they're getting the support they need in a community that they're familiar with,
Hmm.
but isn't necessarily the reservation, and they said they offered great classes and all these things. And I'm like, this is awesome. And then, come to find out, just even through our clients, just like, oh, how was your day? What'd you do there? It's like, this sounds like they're taking advantage of you guys, and
Mm.
so that's kind of
Mm.
where we decided to like build our own program. And I just decided, like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this like in house. And so I did. At the time, I wasn't. Right now, I basically, the whole company is supervised private practice, essentially, or supervised practice, right? Because I also have my the inpatient part of it. But at the time, that was not our situation. So literally, the program I was building was for the rest of us, people who were acting as like BHTs. And I just thought about, like, what could I do that worked? What could I do that made sense? And so we started with DBT. We started small with like a group. We saw how people responded to it. And and also at this time COVID hit. So it's like,
Hmm.
like, we got to give people something to do here, like, And so that's how we just started developing our program there. And once we started developing it, it felt really good. Like it felt like, I don't know, it felt productive, it felt good, and it gave me a like confidence around like, I didn't think I could develop programs. I've never worked in like program management. I never did anything like that before. The administrative stuff was one part, but I always just thought, okay, well, the therapists we hire will come in and do all of that stuff. And they don't in those homes. The therapist comes in and they provide therapy and they leave. And I had to learn that real quick. So it became like, okay, I got to develop this program. I felt a lot of pressure, and then it was a lot easier than I thought. Implementing it was a lot easier than I thought. And
Sometimes I think it's the language that we get hung up on, right? Like program
yeah,
development can sound scary, but in reality, Chantel, that's what you did in your entire job at CFSS.
I think I put it together after it was all done and said, I was like, wow. I was like, oh wait, like I feel like
It's
this feels
familiar.
familiar. Yeah. So we put our program
Oh.
together and things have just been taking off since then. And
Mm.
it was, I think the challenging part then became 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
What do you
And
mean by that?
I was still working full time. I was
Mm.
still working at CFSS full time. And I mean, this was a full time job. So I'd work, 5 days a week at CFSS. When I come home, I feed my daughter, I put her to bed, and then I'm like on the internet and I'm researching and I'm doing this and I'm, you know, also trying to keep up with incident reports and keep up with this and keep up with that. And I'm like, it was like, oh, when I tell you, I became pre-diabetic, like I gained
Mm.
a ton of weight. Like it was a lot. It was so much. It's hard. Sometimes you have to work and start a new business. And
I
it
appreciate you
was
sharing the reality of the difficulty of it and also the reality that that didn't deter you from continuing. And like there's the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Like you were able to quit your full time job at CFSS and make this your full time job.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I think for me, and I didn't see the light, honestly. I just thought like, "Ugh, this is going to be my life. This is never
Mm,
going to end." Because, like,
mm,
for one thing, I don't own this business by myself. My mom owns it with me. So it's like, and again, my mom's a nurse, right? This is mental health. This isn't her specialty. Mom can like barely open her email. Like I have to make this work. And she's put a lot of her money in it. She's an older
mm,
person, retirement. My daughter, like I want my daughter to benefit off of this. What if something happens and my brother needs a job, which honestly down the road that ended up happening. Like I felt the pressure, like if this fails, this is going to ruin my life,
mm.
my daughter's life, my mother's life, my brother's life. So I just felt like this has to work.
That was like
Um,
your motivating factor. Like there's the risk is real, right? But you
yeah,
weren't going to take that as an option.
it's the only factor. Like, and I mean, it is. I think that with being an entrepreneur, like it really, when I think the idea is that you work for yourself and you have all this freedom. And it's just that is not the reality. Like you are, a slave to your business. It's good because, everything you're putting into it, all the benefits come back to you. And
Mhm.
the creativity is endless. Like I
Mhm.
love our program. I love what we do there. I love that it's strict and it's not like other programs I've seen where, it's like, okay, like we do a group every other day. I mean, we have like, it is essentially 4 to 5 hours of therapy Monday through Friday.
Take us
That
on a journey with you. Tell us, because I am sitting here imagining, like, if Chantel made the programming of this, like, it's good and it's not run of the mill. It's not talk therapy focused. It is like down to earth, like, based on science and proven modalities of healing that we know outside of just westernized culture, right? Like, take me on the journey of what it entails.
So our most intensive group. So one thing we do, we get all of our clients as soon as they become members, they have gym memberships. And we are very strict on that. And I always say, like, you don't have to, you don't have to work out, but you need to get up out of this house. Like, you cannot stay here if everybody's at the gym. If you're staying here, like, you need to be missing an arm, like, you really have to go because, and I talk to them about it, like, because we mainly right now deal with substance abuse. And so we talk a lot about, like, look, nothing's going to give you that instant gratification, but focusing on your mind, understanding how your body feels, finding new ways to release endorphins, to connect to your body, over time, you're going to feel good. Like, there's no way around it. Like, give it a chance. And so that's how everyone starts their day around 10 a.m.
Yes.
We're heading to the gym. Like, everybody's going to the gym. They come back, and our most intensive group is the DBT skills training group. And I personally do that one myself Monday through Friday. And, it's funny, like, the training I had on DBT didn't really do the justice to the actual modality. Like, and for those of you who may not know, that's dialectical behavioral therapy. And just through studying the manual and studying different books on it, like, it really is more of a lifestyle change. And I always talk to them. I just kind of started talking to them about, like, how DBT wasn't developed by a clinician. I think I love that part about it, that it was developed by someone essentially who was struggling themselves, right? And that's what I love about it. That's one of the things I love about it. So I start the group there, and we start every DBT cycle with mindfulness. We try and go in order, but mindfulness absolutely is where we start, and that's where we spend the most time. I think this last cycle we spent like 3 to 4 months just on mindfulness.
Yes.
And working with connecting to your body, listening to your wise mind. What is wise mind? What does it really sound like? How do you hear it? How do you make space to hear it? Listening to your breath. What is your breath telling you? We do lots of
Yes.
meditation. And there's always different skills, right? But I always tell them, like, challenge yourself. I know this seems hokey, trust me. Like, I know this seems weird, but, like, challenge yourself to get into it. Talk to your intuition. I've incorporated breath work into it. I really love it. I feel like it's one part of our program that really resonates.
And to
With our
speak to the
clients.
power of the mindfulness activities, I mean, anyone who's been following this podcast, kind of my juju lives in the land that kind of feels more hippie-esque, but it's that mind-body connection and the power of meditation and mindfulness, grounding exercises, feeling your presence and existence, pulling your mind back when it's racing forward or living in the past. And the tools that we can use to implement that are truly life-changing and healing. And it's one
Yes.
of if you do any research today, in today's research, don't go into the old school stuff, but today's research, we know the healing powers of mindfulness and meditation. And it's the most highly recommended thing that
Yes.
a doctor, a prescriber will share with you. But it doesn't get taken seriously because there's not a dollar amount associated to it. It's really connected to a community where people feel it's more like new agey, right? Or like
Mhm. Mhm.
woo wooey, right? And
Mhm.
there's I don't know, this essence around it that can't possibly be real or helpful. And that could be the most integral, like important, effective intervention you can implement with the most serious of all mental illness and experiences you have.
It's so interesting with my clients and going through just that mindfulness part and focusing on like what your body is going through. Because everyone, whenever I work with clients, whether it's in group or individually, everyone is so quick to talk about, like, oh, well, I feel this way and I feel that way, and I feel sad, or I feel angry, or I feel this. And it's like, okay, okay, okay. We are going to talk about that. But what is happening in your body right now? Because what my
Mm,
clients are finding and really discovering is there are, like, physical indicators to their stress, right?
Mhm.
And they're uncomfortable with these physical indicators. They're uncomfortable with it. So then immediately they turn to like self-medicating or another, mental health symptom that helps them, like maladaptive behavior that helps them cope with whatever they're going through. And they don't pay attention to, wait, okay, I was starting to shake, like maybe I need to figure that out or help myself stop shaking or shake and experience it and then realize like I didn't die. You know what I mean? Like I need to figure out that physical, it's just no maladaptive behavior to get rid of it. And then you still feel
Mm.
crappy, and so
Mm.
the transformation with my clients who've gone through that whole cycle and are able to be like, oh, my mouth is watering. I have an urge, like that is like, that's life saving essentially for someone who's struggling with addiction, right? It's not like, oh, okay, yeah, I have an urge, I can't fight it, I need to go. It's like, oh wait, my mouth is watering. What does this mean? Like, am I struggling right now? Oh my gosh, I'm struggling. I need it. And I always tell my clients, if you know you're really struggling, you're having, I don't care if you call 911, I don't care if, the fire department, communicate it. And, you know, it's helped people. Like I've literally had someone call 911 because they're just like, no, like this is where I'm at right now. Like, and being able to notice like the physical discomfort and address
Mm.
that and then
Mm.
connect it to what they're struggling with emotionally.
Mm.
Um,
That
you know,
psychosomatic work,
Oh my
right?
gosh,
Mm.
yeah, like, it's just very, it's been powerful, and it's again, it's like, it's mind-body connection,
Mhm.
and learning about the mind. We use a lot of psychoeducation, right? So learning about what's happening to your brain when you're dealing with trauma and what happens when you deal with complex trauma to your brain and how does
Mm.
your brain change and, oh, wait, it changes in this way, and that means that's PTSD, and, like, just understanding, like, you don't know how many times I've worked with clients on this is like this is how your traumatic experience is. This is how it's happening in your brain. And they're just like, oh my God. Like, and connecting it, the connection I think is huge. And it's relieving because it feels like I'm not inherently broken, you know? There's a
Yes.
reason this is happening to me. And if there's a reason, that must mean that there's a way, right? And
Mm.
so it's been powerful. I love our DBT work. I love our trauma group. We also offer two substance abuse groups. One is relapse prevention, and one is like learning about your substance abuse disorder. And so those are the two groups that are more so just focused strictly on psychoeducation. Here's the information, and we feel like it's important to have that. But the trauma group I think is also good because I feel like it helps them realize like, oh, I'm not alone, like it's so funny because we were in our group and one person was talking about their experiences and another person had the same experience and another person had it and they're like, oh my gosh, like there's a theme, like, and it became this funny thing out of this horrible experience that they all shared, and they need that, right? They need to know,
Mhm.
like, you're not alone in this
Oh my
situation.
goodness,
So
yes.
it's been very powerful. And I mean, the creativity we have in making this program, like, it's been beautiful. I've been enjoying it. We celebrated today because we had two clients that just completed the whole cycle of DBT, and so we had Barro's pizza today. That was fun. And they want to do it again. They're like, "Can we do another cycle?" And I'm like, "Of course you can. Yeah,
Sign you up now.
yeah." I thought they were just gonna
Aw.
spend the hour watching TV, but they're like, "No, we want to do it again." I'm like, "For sure, like,
Wow.
absolutely,
And this
yeah."
type of work, so you're discussing it for your facility, your home, right,
Mhm.
that you have,
Mhm.
but you do this type of work in private practice too, and you do this type of work in
Yeah.
outpatient settings.
Yeah. So when I left the company, I just felt like, okay, if I'm going to do this full time, there is no point in having a separate therapist working with my clients.
Mhm.
Um, Especially I felt like I could just provide the service. And so, before I left, I did a little bit of research and then I realized, I checked with the Board of Behavioral Health and I realized like as long as I'm supervised, I can provide therapy to essentially
Yeah.
anybody independently. So Again, I researched and I researched, and then, I was like, oh, the application isn't right. And then it got approved very quickly. And so when I did that, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, sky's the limit. Like, I can do so much with this. I could have a whole clinic. I can have outpatient services. I
Mm-hmm.
could, I can get on insurance panels. I already know billing and coding from my early days. So I just felt like I want to expand this. I absolutely want to expand this and see how big it can get. And I didn't think I would start I think getting more private clients or outpatient clients has helped me feel like it's more possible.
Mm.
And I see it growing week to week. And that's just from like a little Psychology Today ad that I pay like $20 a month from, and so that led me to think like I need to do this like on a bigger scale. Like, how can I reach more people? And I just felt confident in what I was sharing. And I think another thing too is working in that community, in the Native community, it was very surprising to see how disconnected they are from mental health.
Mm.
Like, and then I thought of like my own community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Nigerian American, and I didn't think anybody could be as disconnected as we are, from that realm. And it's like the same thing, a lot of them talking about their experiences and how things are pushed under the rug or not talked about or not acknowledged. It's like I could really relate to them on that. And
Mm.
of course, it's not a secret that, there's multiple communities that, mental health is stigmatized,
Yeah,
but
there's
I
there's
just
a common thread of not even believing that it's real, right?
exactly, exactly. And the same thing within my community that I saw in their community, right? You go to the church, you go to prayer, you go to the medicine man. We've
Mhm.
had clients want to leave treatment frequently because they're like, this is a bigger problem. I think I need to go to the medicine man. And
Mhm.
it's crazy because it's like I've heard members of my own family say, like, rather than going to therapy, they want to go to, they want to send money back home to Nigeria and, work with this very specific priest. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? By all means, bring your spirituality into your needs, like make it a central part of your needs. But there's no follow up, right? There's no support, there's none of the things that like mental health offer. And there's not that same validation,
Mm.
at least in my community. I don't see it,
Mm.
um it's all part of a bigger thing and a bigger cause. It's all part of the higher power. It's God's plan. And while it's God's plan, maybe it is God's plan, but there's no validation of, but you still went through this and it was
The
awful, it was
struggle,
terrible.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's I that's one thing that's consistent. And so
And
hearing
like the
them talk.
normalization, like if nobody talks about it, you feel damaged, you feel broken, you feel like the oddball out, the black sheep. And once people normalize it, you realize that it's human, right? This is
Oh my
human, and
gosh.
that is like a weight off your shoulder, like, oh, like this is a normal experience that people go through, and it's not just me. Like, I can, and whether normal, I'm not saying normal's healthy, because being abused could be a normal like experience for a lot of humans, but it's not your fault, right? You're not carrying the burden yourself.
And that is like the common thing that I saw across both communities is
Yeah.
like, well, it's my fault. And, I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that. And it's my
Yeah.
responsibility. And it's like, no, it's not. It's like you were
Mm.
12. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that's really not your fault. But, it's hard to come to that realization when it's kind of like, you know, give it to a higher power.
Mm.
It's fine, and it's the same things, and it's the similarities amongst how stigmatized it is, and literally in that community, those families are coming to us only because they feel like they're at the rock bottom. And the question I ask is like, what type of treatment have you had before? And it's like little to nothing, you
Mhm.
know. And then I look at my own community and at least they're trying. You know what I mean? Like in our community, there's nothing. I've reached out to people in my community through social media, and it's like super disconnected from it. Um,
Mm.
Even in my own family, I don't believe members of my own family really knew what I was doing either until I graduated from grad school or I started my business.
I love when you
So,
told me that they were like, they didn't understand your job that you had for a bajillion
no,
years. Like,
yeah.
because it
One of
doesn't
them
make sense if you're not
that
introduced to that culturally, right?
exactly. I think one of them thought, like, when they heard like counselor, they thought I was like a camp counselor. Like, it was very like they just did not know. My own mother didn't really understand what I did until she started this business with
And
me.
she's
And
like,
so,
oh.
yeah, and so when she started realizing, she was like, oh my goodness, because she didn't want me to get into this field because she didn't understand it. She didn't know.
Mhm.
And so, at this point, I just felt like, you know, this can't be the situation, like everybody goes through shit and we
Mhm.
have to deal with it. We have to handle our shit. And, we need to uplift these communities and, help them feel brave enough to be able to process what they're going through, because there's a lot, like I don't think it's a secret, like in the Black community, mental health is stigmatized, and it's crazy. I was talking to someone about it. The person I was talking to lives in Nigeria, and it was so interesting how they were like, we need this here. We don't have anything like this here. And, you don't talk about it. You don't say anything. Something happens to you and it's just this, it. And I was like, what's crazy is you've lived in Nigeria your whole life. I've lived in America my whole life. And the Black community here is the exact same way. Like, that is
So
my experience here as a Black person.
that's like culturally, but I also think of like generationally, like
Generation.
DNA, like
Oh my
there's a
gosh.
lot of that could be a whole nother podcast. There's
I
a
know,
lot of components that play
right?
into that I think is fascinating. We should talk about that in another
I
podcast.
know, right?
Let's do it.
I would sign up, absolutely. But anyways, through that process, that moved me to start on Instagram marketing my services as the Happy Black
Yeah,
Therapist.
yeah.
That has been a big thing for me. And the Happy Black Therapist, if you follow the page, basically is just a space for communities where mental health is like stigmatized or not talked about or just not even acknowledged. Come there and talk about it, talk your stuff, let people know, like, you can be as open or not open as you want. You can just read material, read content. You can reach out to me directly, but come and explore, see if anything resonates with you, even if you can just see like, oh, I've been through that, and you can see people under the comments and it's like, oh my god, these people have been through it. I just wanted a safe space where people can come, where they don't have that in their community.
Mm.
For me and my own family and my own community, I don't have that, honestly. I'm very fortunate to have other spaces where, obviously, through the work I do, I always know where to go. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? To process my own mental health and to grow in my own healing. But I don't have that in my family. And at this point, I will never have that in my family. If I really need that from a family member, there's one other family member who is a therapist who lives in Canada, so I can FaceTime her. That's it. That's it. I don't have that luxury within my own community. So I've had to create that in other communities, which is fine. I'm totally comfortable with
Mhm.
that. But sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you want to talk to the people in your life that are closest to you, that are in your community, that look like you, that, I'm going through this, I'm hurting, this is what I've been through. And, we don't necessarily have the space and freedom to do that. And so if I can just create one more space why not,
I love that, Chantelle. And I appreciate what you post on there so far. Like, I know you just started it, but you're dropping some like simple educational tidbits that people can relate to.
Absolutely. We started with adverse childhood experiences because
Mhm.
most people have them. And,
Mhm.
I think through the work I've done through like my inpatient work, through my facility, it's just reinforced my belief that, childhood trauma is like the cornerstone
Mm.
of like deterioration in adulthood. Like
Mhm.
honestly,
It's
it's
true.
just it really is impactful. And even today, I still work with parents and we talk about things that their kids may have gone through. And they're like, oh, but they were so little, they don't remember. And I have to educate them like, look, they might not remember, but they're going to remember when they're like 25 and it's seeping out of their body in a different way. Like, trust me,
Yeah, the body. I love
they
that book.
know
The
the
body
body
keeps the
remembers.
score,
It
right?
keeps the score. It keeps the score. Like,
Mm.
absolutely. And so, you know, it's really important that people understand. And then oh my gosh, at least I can really speak for my community. I can't speak for the community that I'm serving right now. I've only seen it only in the clients I've worked with. Those are the
Mhm.
only people I've worked with. But the the way that trauma impacts these people today, like people in my own community, people in the community I work with today, is so powerful. And it's like we work with older adults. Like, I have some people in there who are 50 and up. And
Mhm.
even today, the impact is so strong. And so people need to be educated. A big thing that I'm seeing with my clients is a lack of education. Before, honestly, I started doing the work I'm doing, honestly, before I came to CFSS, I lacked education, like the totality of it. You only get so much in undergrad, right? I lacked education on how my childhood has like impacted me, the relationships you have in your childhood, how much it's a foundation, and how
Mhm.
much of it's a foundation for navigating relationships in adulthood, how it's so interconnected.
Mhm.
So I felt it was really important for people to learn about, adverse childhood experiences. And then what I love about it too is it also talks about, again, that mind body connection. So you go through these traumatic experiences. Maybe your experiences weren't physical, but they may have some physical outcomes for you when you're
Mhm.
older, right? It's not just relationships and intrusive thoughts, it's diabetes, it's cancer, it's heart disease, it's
Yes.
and
Yes.
people don't understand when your body keeps that score. It's holding on to that tension and it will seep out some
And
way
that's what I
somehow.
appreciate about when you talk about your interventions and programming, not just living in a talk therapy modality, because
Mm-mm.
that doesn't touch what our body's holding on to. Like, we literally
No.
have to treat this systematically throughout our body as well. Like, I think of healing our gut, right? Think of the
Hmm.
microbiome in our gut, and they call your gut your second brain. And the
Yes.
power that it has and the influence it has over your emotions and your thoughts and your ability to show up and how you express yourself every single day, right? I think of it how you can heal through your sleep with it as well, right? You look at your sleep patterns, and sleep is the most essential thing we can have to heal. And if we're not getting that
Hmm.
deep sleep and enough of it every single night, like, we're setting our body back further and further and further. And sleep's one of the top things that gets disrupted with stress. And chronic stress,
Absolutely.
ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, all contribute to this chronic stress, which typically impacts your sleep. But there's
Absolutely.
these experiences we can implement, and you already talked about relationships and connection, right? But all of these things, the mind body connection, meditation, the mindfulness, these are the things that we use to heal. You don't have to physically remember what you went through to heal and help your body
No.
move forward, right? And on the flip side, you don't have to verbally talk about what happened to you to heal, which is a common misconception. So many, I remember, so speaking to somebody who was in the same system, I was a therapist, or I was on a team as a therapist for a child, and DCS would like bombard me over and over again about, you're not effective because she hasn't talked to you about what happened. And it's like, that is not, first of all, you're not the therapist. Second of all, that is not essential or necessary, right? You do
For a
not need
child
that.
too.
Oh my
Oh my
God. Right. And
gosh.
you're going to talk to me as a stranger while you're living in the DCS system. Like, hold on.
Oh my gosh.
But
It's
you don't need that. Your
you
body needs to
don't.
heal. You need experiences. You need connection. You need to feel safety for the first time in however long. That creates healing. But these are the things that actually are the modalities that we need to implement, that are everyday experiences that don't live within a therapist office, that you're creating at the gym, right? Or through your mindfulness moments that actually move healing forward.
I mean, one of the biggest things, I think a lot of clients, like inpatient and out, come in and they think we're going to sit down and talk about all these horrible things that happened in their past. And I don't even start with talk. Like I do some education on what they may have experienced. And
Mhm.
then I'm like, okay, your homework is to journal this experience. We start with
Yes.
writing.
Yes.
Like, and if we do talk about it, it's literally, okay, read what you wrote. And
Mhm.
then as you're reading, if I see anything come up from you, I'm interrupting you and I'm like, we need to address what you're feeling physically because I see a physical change in you. And they hate
Mm.
it. They hate it. Oh my gosh, they hate it. And it's like, I understand it feels good to like, I get that you feel like you need to come in here and talk about it. And and trust me, I make space for that if
Mhm.
someone really
It's
needs to do
necessary.
that.
Mhm.
It's necessary, but at the same time, like, you're not addressing these physical symptoms that are causing you so much discomfort and your pain, right? Because
Mhm.
that pain you're feeling, if you actually felt it, nothing's going to happen to you.
Mhm.
You're not
Mhm.
going to die at that. You're going to be okay. You're safe. And your
Mhm.
body needs to know that perceived threat that you're picking up isn't real. And if you go through the experience, you're going to be safe, right? And so we don't client they get comfortable with the idea of like not totally talking about it.
Mhm.
But we really, I don't really introduce a lot of talk because it's just not necessary. I mean, if you're reading it and your whole demeanor and your whole body is changing, why do you want to come in here and talk
Mhm.
about it and like lose your mind?
Yes.
You know what I
And
mean?
I
Like,
also think before we even get to that point, like you have to create that sense of safety. So I think of like people I've
absolutely.
worked with where I'm like, we have to help you live in the present moment without escaping through the modalities that you have before we even crack open the book of what you've gone through, because we're going to invite the monster in before you feel safe to exist in this present moment. And creating that safety for yourself is truly through action steps that you do to organize the emotions in your body and regulate through it when you're physically safe in an environment, right?
Yeah, but I think people are conditioned to believe like talk therapy has to look like you come in, you
Yeah.
talk about your day, and then you talk about the horrible things. And it's like,
Mhm.
no,
That's
like,
probably the biggest piece of like thing I experience in my work still today is
mm-hmm,
battling that misconception, and it's
yes,
rightfully so because we're literally trained to believe that in our culture.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so it's so hard to rewind it. Even if you say it and you educate them on it over and over again, their body wants to engage in the way that they've been trained to do so or taught that is appropriate. Or, it's so fascinating to think about.
Yeah,
Alrighty, my dear. We're at like probably an hour here of
I
chit-chatting.
know.
So how can people come and find you?
So I have our website for our inpatient program. Um, that is angelfamilycare.com.
Mm-hmm.
um you know all of you can contact us directly on there, and it has a lot of information about our inpatient services, but it also has information just on how to find us, how to contact us, and just the different services we offer. So don't be deterred if you can't find necessarily the outpatient services on there. And then of course at the Happy Black Therapist,
Yes.
please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. Even if you just want to talk, like DM me, hit me up and just say hi. If anything, check out our content, see if anything resonates with you.
I love it. Well, Chantelle, thank you for gracing us with your presence and wisdom today and sharing so much valuable information. Everybody, I'm going to put the contacts for Chantelle in the show notes so you can just click on them and easily find her. And I look forward to chatting with you again because we are totally coming back on here
Yeah. Oh my
sometime to
gosh.
talk
Yes.
about like genetics and trauma and generational trauma.
Yes.
And
Oh my gosh. Yes, please.
alrighty,
Thank
thank
you
you,
so
friend.
much, Dina. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you are feeling inspired and empowered in your own healing journey. I know that many of you listening might be reflecting on your own stories that you may feel called to share. If so, please reach out to me at dinat@empowertoheal.com. That's DENAT@empower2heal.com. Or drop me a message through my Instagram handle at empower2heal. I would love to connect with you and learn about your journeys so that we can hopefully continue to spread these powerful life lessons on empowering ourselves to heal. My contacts will also be linked in the show notes below so that you can easily find me. We are so eager to start a movement in showcasing the many ways we can heal. And you can be part of this movement too by capturing images and tagging them #empower2heal on Instagram. We look forward to seeing all the ways that you are empowered to heal. I love you, beautiful souls, and thank you so much. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and review.